Today in this video we are going to answer the research question of how did Otto von Bismarck's use of realpolitik and diplomacy cause the unification of Germany between 1862 and 1871. Also during this video we will answer to the following questions. How Otto von Bismarck's realpolitik contributed to the unification of German states? How did the Austro-Prussian War in 1866 show the use of realpolitik? How did the Franco-Prussian War in 1870–1871 show the use of realpolitik? How did the Treaty of Prague affect the balance of power in Europe and the status of German states? What were the main political and military events that led to the Austro-Prussian War in 1866? And what were the main features of the German constitution established in 1871? Before analyzing the impact of Otto von Bismarck in unification of Germany, let's talk about the situation in Germany, Prussia and other small states before Otto von Bismarck, or Iron Chancellor, started the idea of unification. Prussia, before Otto von Bismarck's appointment as Prime and Foreign Minister of the country, was considered the weakest among European powers at that time, and they weren't a threat for any empire. Also, many little states were a part of other kingdoms or countries, like cities of Schleswig and Holstein were a part of Denmark. Also, many of the states had rivalries between each other due to the many reasons.
Now, let me introduce Otto von Bismarck himself. Otto von Bismarck was born in Prussia, to be more precise, in Sennhausen. His father, Ferdinand von Bismarck, was a squire and had his own estate in Pomerania, while his mother, Wilhelmina Mencken, came from a distinguished bourgeois family, among which there were both great people in politics and scientists. Maybe because of this, his mother was always involved in her son's education. At the age of 7, young Otto von Bismarck began his studies. His mother enrolled him in the Progressive Parliament Institute in Berlin, and to support the still young chancellor, she moved with him. He spent about 5 years at school, after which he studied at the Frederick William Gymnasium for another 3 years. Then he passed the university exam, and with the participation of his mother, additionally studied law at the University of Göttingen at the Kingdom of Hanover. After a short stay at the university, he joined the Prussian civil service. Despite such a great education and his future achievements, he could not be called as an outstanding student. Moreover, during his studies at university, he spent most of his time drinking with his friends. However, the tragic death of his mother in 1839 gave him the opportunity to leave the service and came back to his native estate, where he spent his entire childhood and helped his father financially. For almost 8 years, the young Bismarck lived in his native estate, and during this period he met the love of his life, Joanna von Puttkamer, the daughter of an aristocratic religious family. And when I say the love of his life, I really mean it, because it is believed that before his death in 1988, Bismarck's only desire was to see his recently deceased love last time. In 1988, he was appointed one of the deputies of Prussia. Then in 1851, he was appointed representative of Prussia in the Confederation of Germany. Initially, the young Bismarck considered himself only Prussian and even said, "We are Prussians and we will remain Prussians. We don't want the Kingdom of Prussia to be destroyed by a smelly mixture of cozy South German sentimentality." However, after he personally lived for 8 years in Frankfurt, his attitude changed dramatically. He considered it humiliating that Austria had more influence in the Confederation of Germany, which is why, starting from 1854, he vehemently opposed a close alliance with Austria. Then, he also lived for some time in Paris and Russia as the ambassador of Prussia. However, he returned home because King of Prussia himself, William I, called him back because he could not resolve military issues with Parliament. Otto von Bismarck, returning from his wandering, became a completely different person after seeing that in France and Austria the entire regime is based on the success of foreign policy and international plebiscites to strengthen the authoritarian regime of the emperor. That is, in simple words, successful wars and encouragement of the middle class, the importance and influence of which increases throughout the whole era at that period of time. He ceased to be that conservative guy from the village, which he was at before. He found a free space in the constitution and helped his king circumvent the parliament decision, and soon began to implement his plan of unification of Germany by starting a series of wars and treaties with other powers.
Bismarck's policy was not built upon any ideological principles, but the interests of his state divided. He was driven by pragmatic benefit, not political or ethical ideas. Instead of this, he wanted to unify all German states under Prussia and to exclude Austria, and to make Prussia an important European state. In order to achieve this goal, he applied different means such as wars, diplomacy, alliances, provocations, compromises, or even manipulations. For example, the Prussian-Danish War saw Bismarck supporting Danish claims to Schleswig and Holstein territories that are independent of ideological considerations, as they were not part of the German Confederation, but had significant Danish populations on their territories. He also established an alliance with Austria in order to bring her into the war, and then to get the political defense from France, and furthermore to gain power over the Danish territory of Schleswig and Holstein that were located far from Austria, that it could not control them. As a consequence of the war, Prussia and Austria distributed the states between each other, but Bismarck planned to annex them both. The Treaty of Prague in 1866 put an end to the Austro-Prussian War, a war in which the Prussians and the Austrians clashed over the leadership and the unity of Germany. The treaty reshaped the map of Europe and Germany, changing in its several fundamental aspects. First, it expelled Austria from German affairs and made Prussia the real leader of the German states. Additionally, it put an end to the old confederation of German states, a weak alliance of 39 German states, and replaced it with a new North German Confederation, a strong union of 22 North German states under the Prussian rule, according to Encyclopedia Britannica 2024. In this regard, it allowed Prussia to rule over some of the southern and central German states like Hanover, Hessen-Kassel, Nassau, and Frankfurt. Second, it transferred the Venetia region occupied by Austria to France, which in its case returned it back to Italy.
Upon coming to power, Otto von Bismarck intended to unite German regions under Prussia by all means, for which he actively used real politics. The first goal set by him was to capture two German regions that were part of Denmark, namely the regions of Holstein and Schleswig. Moreover, the seizure of these territories would also provide Prussia with access to the Northern Sea, which was extremely important in terms of economy, as it would provide a great opportunity for world trade. After the death of King Frederick VII, Denmark was in a vulnerable position, which was a great opportunity for an attack in the eyes of Bismarck. Before that, Prussia had already made attempts to seize these territories in 1850, but Austria, which was predictably not interested in such strengthening of its opponent, were against this and prevented Prussia by attracting Russia. Austria, having agreed with the Emperor Alexander II, Russia issued the ultimatum to the intervention of Russia's army and the Austrian army in the conflict if Prussia declares the war to Denmark. But this time, Otto von Bismarck prudently agreed Russia on a neutrality, promising to, quote, help Russia to cancel humiliating agreements obtained due to the defeat in the Crimean War. Historical Sketches 2023. For Austria, Prussia's war with Denmark was also unprofitable, due to the fact that Austria also wanted to unite German states, but already under its own leadership, and seizure of German territories by Prussia went against these plans. As a result, Otto von Bismarck deliberately involved Austria-Hungary in the war with Denmark. Since having lost the opportunity to stop Prussia, Austria-Hungary was left with the only option to get at least some benefit to itself in this conflict. Also declare war on Denmark in order to seize the northern territories of Denmark, and having proved himself better than Prussia in this war, as it will increase the authority among the German regions, terribly gaining their support. For Otto von Bismarck, Austria's involvement in the conflict had many positive sides. As an example, it would reduce the probability of French and British intervention in the conflict, increasing its chances to success. And another war would weaken Austria-Hungary, since it was geographically further from Denmark than Prussia, and for her, this war would be much more expensive. In the Austro-Danish-Prussian War, which lasted from February 1st, 1864 to October 3rd, 1864, Austria-Prussia won the crushing victory, and Denmark signed the Wien Peace Treaty, according to which Denmark was no longer claimed the territories of Schleswig and Holstein, which were distributed between Austria-Hungary and Prussia. At the same time, from the point of view of both sides, the result of war were not completely successful, since Prussia did not get access to the Northern Sea, and it was difficult for Austria to control the new territories, since they were at a considerable distance from it. Despite the cooperation of Austria-Hungary and Prussia during this war, their relationships were still tense. The main goal of Otto von Bismarck was the war with Austria, since Austria was the main the most important obstacle to the unification of Germany for Prussia. To prepare for the war with Austria-Hungary, Otto von Bismarck conducted tremendous diplomatic training, which included many treaties with Russia, Italy, and Great Britain. Its main goal was to minimize the possibility of intervention by France, Russia, or the United Kingdom in a conflict. In the situation with Russia, Otto von Bismarck reinforced the previous neutrality treaty with the same promises of assistance with the consequences of the Crimean War in the future. The intervention was unprofitable for Great Britain too, since the strengthening of Prussia would weaken the influence of France, and for Great Britain, France only the opponent in this time. At the time, the France still remained negatively disposed toward the Prussia and planned to attack the winning side in the event of war. Otto von Bismarck understood that, and in order to avoid this, the war must be lightning fast and not costly, and for this he declared the involved Italy in the war, which would also act as an teammate of Prussia. These alliances were beneficial to the both countries of Prussia and Italy, since Italy at that time was also engaged in the unification of its territories, and Austria was the big problem as it held territories of Venice, which is Italy claimed on. As a result, Prussia and Italy agreed to attack Austria from two sides, where Italy expected to capture Venice and Prussia to capture northern territories of Austria. The war is also beneficial for Bismarck in that if Austria wins, the authority of German states will fall, and Prussia will not be able to more fully claim unification of the western German territories with it. On June 14, 1866, the Austro-Prussian-Italian War began, in which Italy and Prussia won a crushing victory. At the end of the war, all German states that sided with Austria had to pay a serious indemnity or make concessions and integrate economically. Historical Sketches 2023. As a result, having proved its own superiority over Austria, Prussia encourages the German states to unite with it, and already in August 18, 1866, after signing of the Treaty of Alliance, a Northern German alliance led by Prussia was created. The next and the last goal for Otto von Bismarck was the annexation of southern German territories. But here the main problem is already France, which under no circumstances wants to allow the annexation of these lands by Prussia. France, which after all actions of Prussia was preparing for war with it, since it could not allow such a strengthening of its geographical neighbor. Moreover, Emperor Napoleon III needed a war to strengthen his authority, as he had no longer that very big authority among Frenches. Otto von Bismarck was well aware of France's intentions and to attack the German alliance, and as a preparation measure, he re-equipped the army of alliance stated in the Prussia way, making the general army well equipped and disciplined. Also, using diplomacy, Otto von Bismarck achieved the lack of support for the France, as he again strengthened Russia's neutrality through the mentioned above agreements, such as Alexandria Protocol, which promised Russia military assistance in the case of war with other countries. As a result, France, which at that time had no allies, began the Franco-Prussian War on July 18, 1817, crossing the border of Northern German Union. The well-equipped Prussian army under the command of Helmut Karl Bernhard von Moltke, who were established himself as a brilliant military leader in previous wars, in combination with the numerical advantage of the army, initially had a great success in the defensive war, and later inflicted a terrible defeat on the French army, and advanced, besieging Paris and capturing over 300,000 French soldiers, including the Emperor Napoleon III. Due to the absence of the emperor, a provisional government of defense was formed in France, which did not agree to make concessions, as a result of which negotiations were disturbed. As a result, after a long siege, Paris was shelled with coupled of the famine, and forced the government of National Defense to declare an armistice on Prussian terms. As a result of war, Otto von Bismarck received everything he claimed, including the territories of Alsace and Lorraine, as well as 5 billion francs in gold contributions. As a result, Otto von Bismarck on January 18, 1817 made Germany a full and united government, and he showed the great diplomacy actions in order to make all of this.
Abstracting from this topic, most people at the first sight can think that an ordinary man from a not very wealthy family will not be able to have such a great historical influence on an entire nation in the Europe in 19th century, but Otto von Bismarck could. So, summing up all of the above, we can say with the confidence that the diplomatic skills used by Otto von Bismarck played a crucial role in the unification of Germany. He served as a catalyst for many processes that launched a number of actions that served as the reason for the unification and, we can say, the existence of Germany as a whole. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.